Week 15 of the NFL questions. God damn, the season's going by fast. If you want to hear your questions submitted on the podcast, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, Monday morning, there will be a picture asking you to ask me anything. Submit your question. You can hear your question on the podcast just like this. Prime versus Ocho. Who wins? I love Nightcap too. I was watching it last night with Coach Prime back on there, and honestly, it just made me miss Dion as a on-screen commentator when he was working on NFL Network. I was sitting there like, damn, I just miss hearing you talk about the NFL. Obviously, I want him to stay at Colorado and continue to raise the young men and hopefully come back next year and be better. But damn, I was just like, man, I miss hearing you talk about NFL football. Okay, so here's the thing. I love Ocho. I really do. But I've seen Revis, Champ Bailey, and Sherman shut Ocho down. And the only receivers I've ever seen give prime Deion Sanders problems is Jerry Rice and Michael Irvin, I think once. So I think Prime got that one. However, so I'm not completely shitting on Ocho here. I will make the point that Chad Ochocinco Johnson deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and I think it is a great travesty that he is not. Let me put my YouTuber voice on. Here's why Chad Ochocinco deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. From my understanding, the Hall of Fame is supposed to tell the story of the NFL. Tell me, how do you tell the story of the NFL in the 2000s without Ochocinco? Are there 5 more receivers that you think of before you get to Ochocinco? I can argue there's not 2. You look at the career numbers, they stand for it. Pro Bowls stand for it. Everyone's talking about the distractions and the touchdown celebrations. I think you're missing a point. They're touchdown celebrations. We know he has so many of the touchdown celebrations because he scored a shit ton of touchdowns. Anyways, that's just my 2 cents on it. Put Ochocinco in the Hall of Fame, but he has no shot against Prime. Sorry to tell you. Thank you for the question. Do the Bills ride on the back of James Cook now? 221 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Wow. Couple things here. One, it is shocking that they even have the option to do that. All these past couple years, Josh Allen's had to be the superhero act because they had no running game this entire time. They've been waiting for James Cook to explode like this, and it looks like it's happening at the right time of the season. As far as will they ride him, pause, I don't think so. Just because when you have Josh Allen going into a game saying we're going to have one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league only throw the ball 15 times, that's a tougher sell. If it just so happens to work out that way, that's different. But for you to go into a game and that being the game plan, that's not going to fly. However, the fact that they have this James Cook counterpunch they can go to is great because they play in Buffalo. And the reason why they've struggled sometimes in Buffalo and on the road against other AFC teams in the playoffs is because it gets cold in January. And it's hard to do the Josh Allen superhero act when it's 10 degrees outside. If you remember the couple years back, the last time the Patriots beat the Bills outside of this year, it was the pouring rain sideways, like 50-mile-per-hour winds, and nobody could pass the ball at all, and the Patriots just ran the ball all game long. I think Mac Jones only had 3 pass attempts. They didn't have a running game to stand on that day. Today, they can win that game. And I think that's the biggest revelation from the Cowboys game. I'll talk more about it later, but that's the biggest revelation about it. Now they have a running game they can lean on. I like their chances for the playoffs a lot better. But no, they're not going to ride James Cook the entire time. You don't have Josh Allen and not use him. Come on. But thanks for the question. Do we still think that Dallas isn't going to just choke in the playoffs again, or are they actually serious? I still think Dallas is serious, man. I'm not the panic guy. That's not what I do here. Every single contender either has a loss where they got their ass completely kicked or an inexplainable loss that we look back on and we don't know how the hell it happened. The Eagles have both. Eagles got their ass kicked by the Niners and the Cowboys, and somehow they lost to the Jets. The Ravens lost to Gardner Minshew and the Colts in the rain. The Niners lost 3 straight and got their ass kicked by the Bengals. I can keep going, but you get the point. That's just the type of year it is this year in the NFL, bro. I'm sorry. Like, people are just taking L's left and right. No one thought the Cowboys were going to run the table for the rest of the season. But I'm not here to overreact. I'm not here to panic. The main concerning thing, I'll expand on this later for the power rankings, is that run game is bad. It's not just, it's not something they can lean on. No, it's bad. It's really bad. And they're going to have to be able to muster something on the ground if they're going to be taken seriously in the playoffs. But they get that somewhat fixed and get it serviceable, they'll be fine. Thanks for the question. Why does Russ get all the flack for losses? The O-line wasn't blocking for nothing, and the defense sucks. Couple reasons. One, he's a quarterback, and to whom much is given, much is requested. Quarterbacks always get too much of the blame and too much of the credit. The game is a game. Also, people just don't like Russ for a multitude of reasons, whether it's because you think he's corny or you're a devout Future fan or you think they traded too much for him or whatever. A lot of people just don't rock with Russ. So if they have any excuse to just throw rocks at him, they will. But you are correct. That loss was not entirely on Russ. The Broncos defense did not come to ball that day. They've been making their living off of turnovers, and I know there's arguments back and forth in the football nerd community as to whether turnovers are based on luck or not, but they weren't able to create any against a Jared Goff-led offense who's been giving the ball away like free samples. So does that say more about Russ or does that say more about the Broncos? Says more about the Broncos. Thanks for the question. All right, last question, then we'll get to the power rankings. Who would you least want on your team? Brandon Staley, Matt Canada, or Arthur Smith? Whoo! So when I first got this question, I thought I was choosing who would I most want on my team. So, okay, this actually is a little harder, funny enough. Okay, who would I least want out of these three? So Brandon Staley is supposedly a defensive mastermind who had the 25th or worst ranked defense every year he was a Charger head coach. So you have one job and you suck at that job. So, that's a demerit. Matt Canada is an offensive dunce, let's call it what it is. Ran a dysfunctional offense in Pittsburgh for years, but I might be able to make an excuse for him in a second. We'll get there in a minute. Arthur Smith, my hatred for Arthur Smith has been aired on this podcast before. For y'all that missed it, it's not the fact that he doesn't use his weapons on offense correctly. That's one thing. It's the fact that he's so fucking arrogant about it and treats us like we're the dummies because we say, hey, maybe you should give your good players the ball so they can score. Crazy thought. Maybe you should give your good players the ball. But no, he's the all-knowing grand poobah of football, so he knows better than we do. All right, Arthur. But with Matt Canada, the Steelers' offense hasn't looked that much better since he's been gone. Granted, Kenny Pickett's been hurt, and in that first game, they got 400 yards, but they didn't score. They had like 16 points that game. So there's a chance that Matt Canada might not be as bad as we think. So Matt Canada is at the top of the shitty coach bowl. A number 2 spot, look, as much as I hate Arthur Smith, he's not a bad coach. He's just hard-headed as fuck. And I can deal with hard-headed. Hard-headed make for a soft ass, and it don't make for a terrible record, even though they just lost to literally the worst team in football, but still. Last place got to be Brandon Staley. You have one job. Be good at defense, and he couldn't do that. You had one fucking job.